population, the Palestinians, is like way grosser and unimaginably cruel. I was just bringing that up because, like, no matter what, in any other circumstance, if like a non-Western actor is like doing an act of terror against, you know, England, Ben would lose his mind. He'd be like, that's terrorism. What the fuck? But yes, most Israeli prime ministers early on were terrorists. Most party leadership early on straight up were in terror cells, Zionist terror cells. Anyway, Ben would call that underground fighting cells.
Now, this story is not about Menachem Begin. This story is about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a coward. Joe Biden is a terrible, terrible voice when it comes to foreign policy, and he always has been. There's a reason that former Obama Defense Secretary Robert Gates said that Joe Biden had literally never been correct on foreign policy in his entire life. And that is true. Joe Biden has a unique capacity to screw up when it comes to foreign policy. Joe Biden is weak-kneed. Joe Biden is so weak that he brags about being the only member of the Obama administration to oppose the bin Laden raid. That's how weak Joe Biden is. Well, now Joe Biden is showing his neck to Hamas. And when you talk about unjustifiable acts on every possible level, moral, political, pragmatic, none of it makes any sense. On the moral level, Hamas is a terrorist.
I hope he's going to talk about Israel's actions now, right? Like unjustifiable in every sense of the word.
That is currently holding 5 Americans. There are 5 Americans who are being held.
Israel is a terrorist group currently holding approximately 10,000 Palestinians, which include children as well, and women.
By Yahya Sinwar and his group of barbaric thugs. Their names. I know that Joe Biden doesn't mention their names very often. He will talk about Brittany Griner until the cows come home. But when it comes to 5 Americans who happen to be Jewish who are being held by Hamas.
It's so funny for Ben to say this because the only way to facilitate the release of those Americans is by ceasefire. And the only people currently on the planet that are standing against that is not even the American state. It's just Benjamin Netanyahu's war cabinet. Tens of thousands of Jews in Israel do not agree with Benny Boy here. Obviously, the entire Western world doesn't agree with Benny Boy here at this point. Literally, he is just alone. And until recently, Joe Biden was on Benny Boy's side, but that was pretty much it. The idea that like there's some magical way of like releasing these hostages and it's just Hamas that's like refusing to give them up is so stupid. Israel and the war cabinet specifically is the only reason why those hostages have not been released and will probably fucking die under Israeli rockets.
Then he won't mention their names. He'll take the occasional photo op with their relatives and pretend that he's going to stand by them. But as we'll learn in a moment, he ain't standing by nobody. Their names are Eden Alexander, who is 19 years.
By the way, once again, I was right, but too early when I said Israel absolutely, and defenders of Israel absolutely in the Western world especially, is using these hostages as a fucking reason as to why they will enact righteous cruelty upon the entirety of the Palestinian population as simply a talking point. There's no better example in this because Biden refusing to give 2,000-pound bombs to Israel unironically is better for the betterment of the hostages. Him being like, dude, we're not giving you bunker busters because you're literally wiping out the entire Gaza Strip, including with the hostages inside of the Gaza Strip. We have to put an end to this somehow is unironically a decent way to try and stop Israel from killing more hostages. Ben, on the other hand, is claiming that this is done against the hostages' best interest.
And when it comes to the pragmatic, what Joe Biden is doing right now is the least pragmatic thing I've ever seen a politician do on foreign policy. He has created an entire incentive structure for Hamas to walk away from the table. He has created an incentive structure for Hezbollah to get into a war with Israel. He has created an incentive structure whereby, by the way, if Israel goes in, more civilians will die. So what am I talking about here? Yesterday, in what had been a telegraphed move for the last week or so, Joe Biden went on Aaron Burnett's show on CNN, and he proceeded to announce that the United States would remove offensive weaponry from Israel.
Dude, it's crazy. I'm listening to this, and the only thing I can hear, like I'm listening to this screeching as this man, right? And literally the only thing I can hear is this. He's just like, why won't you give Israel all the weapons it needs, even though you have been doing so for months? Why? Give Israel all the guns. I love Israel so much. Give him all the guns.
Remember, he just signed a bill providing $14 billion in aid to Israel. That bill combined $14 billion in aid to Israel with some $60 billion in aid to Ukraine. And the way that Biden got it over the finish line, along with Speaker Johnson in the House, was by combining those elements. Because it turns out that the Republicans are disproportionately anti-Ukraine aid, but pro-Israel aid. And Democrats are disproportionately anti-Israel aid, but pro-Ukraine aid. Joe Biden has decided unilaterally that in violation of the Impoundment Control Act of 1974, he is simply going to hold up the shipments of weaponry.
Every single lethal aid package that has gone into Israel is in direct violation of America's own rules and restrictions that they've set forward that dictate under the Leahy Act that no weapons transfers being made to a foreign nation, a foreign ally, can be used in committing international human rights abuses. You cannot do war crimes with American weapons. Now, of course, all of our allies commit war crimes with our weapons all the time. That's a joke. But the idea that Joe Biden has no legal basis, the idea that Joe Biden has no legal basis whatsoever to restrict weapons transfers to Israel is ridiculous. There is also subsequently an investigation that America put a timeline on their own for Israel to deliver information on what they were doing with the American weapons. We literally told them yesterday was the deadline, by the way, for this, that by yesterday, Israel has to give a full report on how every single weapon has been used to ensure that no war crimes have been committed. We have now delayed the release of this investigation. Part of the reason why I suspect delayed the release of this investigation is because it puts into legal doctrine, or it puts into legally enforceable contracts directly our culpability in Israel's violations of human rights. Just letting you know that there is more to this conversation than what Ben Shapiro is crying about.
Now, understand, Israel has been attempting to move the civilians out of Rafah so that they can go in and kill terrorists in Rafah. And Joe Biden has opposed that too. So the new math is that the United States will undercut our own democratic allies if terrorists do the most terrorist thing, which is hide behind civilians. He is now creating a full-scale incentive structure for terrorists to hide among civilians because now they are safe from any sort of retaliation. The weapons that he wants to deny to Israel are targeted weapons, the kinds of weapons that minimize.
Big dog, the reason why the terrorists are always safe, no matter where they are in the Gaza Strip, is because they're not children. They're not women and they're not children. If you look at the actual numbers, that's what the majority of the fucking deaths are. The overwhelming majority, as a matter of fact, 2/3. So the quote unquote terrorists, they're fine. They're fine because Israel doesn't have the smoke for actual militants. Israel only has the smoke for babies, for baby murder, which you love, supposedly, it seems. You claim to be anti-abortion, and you claim that abortion is baby genocide, and yet you are in support of the greatest facilitator of baby murder that we have seen. The greatest state-sponsored baby murder. You are demanding that the American government continue giving baby murder weapons to Israel, the number one baby killer on the planet currently.
He is showing daylight between Israel and the United States, sufficient that Hezbollah might think, okay, well, if we open up on the northern front, the United States won't resupply Israel then either. Iran will get more aggressive, not less aggressive. And of course, Hamas will walk away from the table, which apparently they did this morning.
The reason why they walked away from the table is because Israel, contrary to what the American envoys offered to the Hamas side, contrary to what the CIA said to Hamas, in an effort to get them to agree to a ceasefire negotiation, Israel is moving against America's wishes. This is part of the reason why Joe Biden is saying that he would stop the weapons transfers anyway. All of which, by the way, makes it way harder to extract hostages. But Ben, as we've established, doesn't give a fuck. If it meant continuing the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, Ben would kill those American Jews himself. Give him a gun, and he would shoot them point blank if it meant complete destruction of the Gaza Strip. I promise you, he does not give a fuck about those hostages. Because if he did, he would be joining in unison the rest of the Jews in Israel that are currently protesting the Netanyahu war cabinet for doing nothing. But because he simply talks about the hostages as a talking point and he hits the say their names bullshit as though he gives a single shred of a fuck I'm telling you,